What if I told you that a trader took just $700 and turned it into $89,000 in 3 weeks? Your first thought might be lucky gambler or fake news. But what if I told you this wasn't luck at all? It was the result of a specific psychological framework that most traders never develop. Today, we're diving deep into the mind of Waqar Asim, a trader who achieved what seems impossible through a unique approach to market psychology. But here's the twist. His success wasn't built on complex strategies or insider knowledge. It was built on something far more fundamental, a complete reimagining of how fear, greed, and time interact in the trading mind. Introduction. I've been trading professionally for over a decade, and I've seen every type of trader imaginable. The overconfident newcomers who blow accounts in days, the analysis paralysis sufferers who know everything but execute nothing, the revenge traders who turn small losses into catastrophic failures. But rarely do I encounter someone who has fundamentally rewired their psychological relationship with the markets. Wakar's story isn't just about making money, it's about the psychological evolution that made such profits possible. When most traders are battling their emotions, he developed a system that worked with human psychology rather than against it. When others were paralyzed by fear of lower time frames, he found clarity in the chaos. But his journey wasn't without its dark moments. Trading for need, not want. Taking risks that would terrify most professionals. Facing the psychological pressure that comes with life-changing gains happening in minutes, not months. The psychological foundation. Let me start with something that will challenge everything you think you know about trading psychology. Waqar discovered that the market's fractal nature isn't just a technical concept, it's a psychological one. Most traders suffer from what I call time frame anxiety. They believe that shorter time frames are inherently more chaotic, more emotional, more dangerous. This belief creates a psychological prison. They're afraid to look at 1-minute charts because they've been told it's just noise. But here's what Waqar understood that others didn't. Market structure exists at every time frame because human psychology exists at every time frame. Fear and greed don't suddenly disappear when you zoom out to daily charts. I've experienced this myself. Early in my career, I was terrified of anything below the 4-hour chart. I thought longer time frames were safer because they felt more analytical, less emotional, but I was wrong. I was simply avoiding the psychology of the market, not mastering it. Waqar developed what he calls a fractal mindset. He understood that whether you're looking at a weekly chart or a 30-second chart, you're still looking at the collective psychology of market participants. The patterns are the same because human nature is the same. This insight led to his first psychological breakthrough. Time doesn't create market structure, human behavior does. Most traders are slaves to time. They believe certain hours are magical, certain sessions are untradeable. But Waqar learned to read the emotions of the market participants instead of the clock. I remember having a similar revelation during the Asian session years ago. I was convinced it was dead money time, just ranging, boring price action. But when I started focusing on the psychology rather than the time, I realized I was watching the same fear and greed patterns, just compressed into tighter ranges. The market was teaching me patience and precision, not avoiding me. The need versus want psychology. Here's where Waqar's story takes a dark turn that every trader needs to understand. He wasn't trading for fun or to prove a point. He was trading out of necessity. This created what I call survival psychology, a double-edged sword that either destroys traders or forges them into something extraordinary. Most trading advice tells you never to trade money you can't afford to lose. It's good advice for most people. But Waqar's situation was different. He was trading with survival instincts activated, which created an unusual psychological state, complete clarity about what mattered and what didn't. I've been in similar situations, though not as extreme. There was a period in my career where trading wasn't just my profession, it was my lifeline. The psychological pressure was immense, but it also stripped away all the nonsense. No more theoretical debates about indicators. No more analysis paralysis. just pure focus on what worked and what didn't. This psychological state led Waqar to his second breakthrough: emotional clarity through necessity. When you're trading for survival, you can't afford to fool yourself. You can't pretend a losing system is working. You can't indulge in hope or denial. The market becomes brutally honest with you because you need it to be. But here's the dangerous part: the same psychology that creates clarity can also create recklessness. Waqar was risking 5 to 8% per trade, amounts that would terrify most professional traders. The difference was his psychological preparation for that risk. He had already accepted the worst-case scenario, which paradoxically freed him to execute without fear. The four-swing rule: psychology meets structure. Now, let me tell you about Waqar's most important psychological discovery, one that changed how I think about pattern recognition and emotional discipline. He discovered that market reversals almost always occur after 4 to 6 swings in the opposing direction. At first glance, this seems like a technical observation, but dig deeper, and you'll see it's profoundly psychological. Think about your own trading. How many times have you jumped into a reversal after just 1 or 2 opposing moves? How often have you been stopped out just before the real reversal began? The four-swing rule isn't just about market structure. It's about human impatience. Most traders can't wait for proper setup completion. They see 2 opposing swings and think, this is it, the reversal is starting. Their fear of missing out overrides their discipline. Waqar's psychological insight was that markets need time to build the emotional pressure necessary for true reversals. Those 4 to 6 swings aren't just price action. They're the market slowly building up the collective frustration, hope, and fear that eventually explodes into significant moves. I tested this concept extensively after learning about it. The psychological difference between waiting for the second swing versus the fourth swing is enormous. By the fourth swing, I found myself much calmer, more confident, and more prepared for the actual reversal when it came. This taught me something crucial about trading psychology. Patience isn't just about waiting. It's about allowing the market's emotional pressure to build to the point where your entry has the highest probability of success. The manipulation mindset. Here's where Waqar's psychology becomes truly advanced. While most traders fear market manipulation, he learned to expect it, plan for it, and profit from it. This represents a complete psychological shift from victim to participant. Most traders have a victim mentality about manipulation. They believe big money is out to get them, that the market is rigged against retail traders. This creates paranoia, second-guessing, and ultimately, paralysis. But Waqar developed what I call a manipulation partnership mindset. He understood that manipulation isn't personal, it's structural. Markets need liquidity to function, and that liquidity has to come from somewhere. Rather than fighting this reality, he decided to work with it. His approach was psychologically brilliant. Always look for the sweep before taking any trade. This single rule protected him from being the liquidity that gets swept while positioning him to benefit from the reversal that follows. I've adopted this mindset in my own trading, and the psychological benefits are remarkable. Instead of feeling victimized when a trade initially moves against me, I recognize it as part of the process. This reduces emotional stress and allows for cleaner decision-making. The deeper psychological insight here is about acceptance versus resistance. Waqar accepted that markets would try to stop him out before moving in his favor. This acceptance eliminated the surprise and emotional turbulence that destroys most traders. Managing success, the psychology of large gains. Now, let's discuss something most traders never consider: the psychology of managing extraordinary success. When Waqar's account grew from $700 to $89,000, he faced a psychological challenge that few understand. How do you maintain discipline when you're making life-changing money in minutes? Most trading psychology focuses on managing losses and drawdowns, but success creates its own psychological traps. When you make more in a day than you used to make in months, several dangerous thoughts emerge. I'm a genius, this is easy, I should risk more, or conversely, I should quit while I'm ahead. Waqar's approach was psychologically sophisticated. He stopped looking at profit and loss numbers during trading. This wasn't ignorance. It was intentional psychological protection. By focusing on the process rather than the outcome, he maintained the mental state that created the success in the first place. I learned this lesson the hard way in my own career. I once had a month where I made exceptional returns, and I became obsessed with the P&L. Every tick became personal. My decision-making deteriorated because I was protecting profits rather than trading opportunities. The psychological principle here is what I call outcome independence. True trading mastery comes when you can execute your system with complete indifference to the financial result of any individual trade. This sounds easy, but requires immense psychological discipline. The intuition paradox. Here's Waqar's final psychological insight, and it's one that will challenge how you think about trading intuition. He believes intuition is simply compounded experience over time. This isn't mystical, it's neurological. Most traders either dismiss intuition as unscientific or treat it as magical. Both approaches are wrong. Intuition, from a psychological perspective, is your subconscious pattern recognition system, working faster than your conscious mind can process. But here's the crucial part. This system only develops through actual execution, not observation. You can't develop trading intuition by watching others trade or studying charts. You can only develop it by taking trades, being wrong, being right, and building that database of emotional and technical experiences. Waqar's psychological framework for developing intuition was simple. Execute consistently, learn from every outcome, and trust the pattern recognition that emerges over time. This approach requires enormous psychological courage because it means accepting that you'll be wrong often while your intuition develops. Conclusion. Waqar Asim's journey from $700 to $89,000 wasn't really about the money. It was about developing a psychological framework that could handle the emotional pressures of professional trading. His success came from understanding that trading is fundamentally a psychological game disguised as a technical one. The key insights from his approach: embrace the fractal nature of market psychology, use necessity to create emotional clarity, wait for proper setup completion, regardless of impatience, expect and profit from manipulation rather than fear it, maintain process focus during both losses and extraordinary gains, and develop intuition through execution experience. But perhaps the most important lesson is this: extraordinary trading results require extraordinary psychological preparation. Most traders focus on finding better strategies when they should be developing better psychological frameworks. Waqar's story proves that with the right mindset, the right psychological preparation, and the willingness to face your fears, the markets can become not just profitable, but transformative. The question isn't whether you can find profitable trades, it's whether you can develop the psychological framework to handle them when you do. Remember, the market is not your enemy. Your emotions are not your enemy. Your lack of psychological preparation is your enemy. Master that, and like Waqar, you might discover that the impossible is simply the untested